Hello, my YouTube friends. It's me, Andrew Fantasia, and welcome to another review marathon. This is my favorite tradition, probably my only tradition that I have on my channel, and I love doing it every 3 months. You know the rules by now. I sit down and watch as many movies as I can, and then I talk about them in this review marathon as fast as I can. The rules are it has to be movies I've never seen before, and they have to be at least a year old. Now, the first time I did this was during the Fanny Awards a couple of years back, because due to COVID, there wasn't a lot to fanny about, so I had to improvise. And yes, I just used fanny as a verb. Anyway, the first time I did this, I somehow ended up watching, I think it was 68 or 69 movies in the span of 3 months. I don't know how I did that. That was in the middle of the pandemic, so I must have just had so much free time. I've never been able to hit that number again. But for this, the 7th of our official review marathons, my friends, I've broken a record. I have broken all the previous records. Usually, our average on these things tends to hover around the mid to late 20s. That's usually what I can get around to watching in 3 months. Not these 3 months, my friends. These 3 months, this guy managed to see 40 movies he has never seen before. The big 4-0. And we're going to talk about them all right now, as fast as we possibly can. Roll up your sleeves, put on some espresso. We're marathoning the hell out of this. Here we go. Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. This ended up being one of my absolute favorite of the Universal monster flicks. Maybe it's because they just wholeheartedly embrace the over-the-top fun of the whole thing. It's also their best crossover picture, at least the best one I've seen. The climax is one of the only places I can think of where you get classic Frankenstein monster, classic Dracula, and classic Wolfman all together in one shot. Sure, it's Glenn Strange playing the monster instead of Boris Karloff, but at least you've got Lugosi and Lon Chaney Jr. The whole thing's capped off with a cameo from Vincent Price as the Invisible Man, making it the closest damn thing to an Avengers movie Universal ever got around to doing. The Babadook. A mean old monster with great fashion sense starts terrorizing an Australian lady and her annoying kid. There's a lot of smart stuff going on under the surface here, making this meal a much more substantial one compared to most other haunted horror pictures. There are countless essays that could be, and in all likelihood have been, written about this story. It's slightly less scary if you think about the fact that the Babadook always says his own name, so he's basically just a Pokemon. Backdraft. The thing to keep in mind about blockbuster films from the 1990s is that, by law, the people making them were required to forget what the word subtle means. But if you can muscle your way past that, you'll have a great time, especially with Backdraft, which is one of the better 90s schlockbusters I've ever seen. It's definitely the best 2-hour story about firefighters that could possibly be told, so yeah. Basic Instinct. Yes, this is the movie where Sharon Stone's naughty bits are on full display, but if we're being honest, I think the star of the show here is Jerry Goldsmith's score. The music in this flick is phenomenal. I watched this back in mid-August though, and I'm still trying to figure out what the title Basic Instinct is supposed to mean. Blue Thunder. Despite the fact that this is a movie about incompetent police officers and asshole government officials, it still somehow manages to come across as an unrealistic cartoon. Watching Blue Thunder kind of feels like you're watching somebody else play Grand Theft Auto for 2 hours, but overall it adds up to a fun, cheesy experience. Bride of Chucky. Just like the titular killer doll himself, Bride of Chucky took a pretty much dead franchise and breathed new, colorful life into it. Jennifer Tilly is hilarious, and Chucky himself is a national treasure. I could watch a whole sitcom of these two dolls just trying to live their life, one voodoo ritual and homicide at a time. Seed of Chucky. Seed of Chucky can probably best be described by the phrase, cuckoo bananas. Chucky and Tiffany are the undisputed stars of the show now, and they embrace that. Their son Glenn manages to be horrifying and adorable simultaneously, and I don't think science could ever explain why or how. I liked it, but it's still a low point in the franchise. Curse of Chucky. No part 6 of any horror franchise has the right to be this good. The Curse of Chucky uses its low budget and fun premise to take the world of Chucky in a fun new direction. Remember in the last marathon when I said Maniac Cop 2 was the best direct-to-video sequel ever made? Well, I lied. It's this. It's Curse of Chucky. Cult of Chucky. Spoilers, There are multiple Chuckies this time, and even though that sounds like the most fun idea ever, it only really comes to fruition in the final half hour. Cult of Chucky is good, but it could have been great if it let itself be the Chucky bonanza we all want it to be. The latter half of this franchise has been so damn fun that I'd like to check out the new Chucky TV show, but it's on Showcase, which means it's damn near impossible to find. The Cable Guy. Yeah, I never got around to this one till now. This bizarre Jim Carrey flick was darker than anything he'd done up to that point, and honestly, I didn't like it. It tried to cram in an anti-TV message at the very end that wasn't earned, and the whole thing just felt like a mess. Are we supposed to root for Carrey? Are we supposed to be afraid of Carrey? He's great at being creepy and lovable, but that's about it. Carrey. The first, but definitely not last, Hollywood adaptation made of a Stephen King story. My impressionable little eyes caught snippets of this finale at some point in my childhood, and it filled me with terrors involving crucifixes and Sissy Spacek's wild eyes. Finally getting to experience it from top to bottom is a luxury I am very thankful for, because Carrey remains, to this day, one of the most frightening King adaptations ever made. Children of the Corn. For all the legendary status this movie possesses in popular culture, I was expecting something with more substance. It feels like there's a much more interesting story that this movie just brushes off and decides not to tell. I'd make a joke about it being corny, but I'd like to think I'm above that. The Commuter. If you throw a rock anywhere in the 2010s, you will hit a Liam Neeson action thriller. While The Commuter is certainly no Taken, it's one of the better ones he's done. Just like an actual subway train, it takes a while to pick up speed, but once the plot kicks in, damn does it ever kick in. And there's one hell of a good fight scene about halfway through. Cujo. Everything that happens here could have been avoided if Cujo's owners had just sprung for a rabies shot, so I wonder what the anti-vaxxers think of this one. Prick jokes aside, the fear is palpable, the tension is real, Dee Wallace is awesome, and they actually managed to make this really cute St. Bernard look horrifying for 80 minutes. The House by the Cemetery. This Lucio Fulci extravaganza turned out to be a great little haunted house flick. It was way more coherent than City of the Living Dead and manages to make a cheap bat puppet effectively frightening. Come for the classic macabre theme, but stay for the hilarious dub job they did on the little boy, who sounds like a middle-aged woman about to apply for a second mortgage. Jack's back. There is a market for bizarro James Spader stories that involve identical twins and Jack the Ripper copycat killers. Jack's back is proof of that. Does it work? I guess as well as any James Spader identical twin Ripper ripoff could possibly work. Spader will always find a way to make it work. That's what he does. The last man on Earth. I think my mom summed it up best. If there actually was an apocalypse in real life, Vincent Price would end up being the last man on Earth. And that's exactly what happens here. This was even darker than the Will Smith remake, and I was not expecting that. Good stuff. Madam X. Lana Turner takes center stage in an absolutely heartbreaking drama that's too good to spoil here, but involves secret identities and the dangerous game that is keeping up social appearances. Check this one out for yourself, but bring a tissue. Bring all the tissues. Malignant. A lady sees visions of something killing people, and then those visions turn out to be totally real and not visions at all. The big twist was a really fun reveal, but I found the overall thing kinda silly. I won't spoil what it is, just in case. This is only a year old after all, but I think most people will end up laughing at Malignant before all's said and done. The Mighty Ducks. It turns out this 90s Disney flick about an underdog hockey team is just as heartwarming as everybody says it was. Still not sure how any of this is going to lead to these kids becoming superheroes who fight intergalactic threats, so maybe that happens in the sequel. D2, The Mighty Ducks. Even though John Avildsen had nothing to do with this franchise, I can feel his fingerprints all over them, from the escalating stakes to the over-the-top villains to the scant 6 seconds of runtime after the climax. I'm having so much fun with these though, and I'm finding this team of kids endlessly charming. D3, The Mighty Ducks. Oh my god, how are these movies so good? I see why these had such broad 90s appeal, and I'm really bummed I never watched them as a kid. This time around, Joshua Jackson's got an attitude problem, and it's dragging the team down in this third and final Duck outing that contains more great hockey, but still no goddamn space monsters. I had a lot of fun with this trilogy, so much so that I started watching the Legacy sequel series on Disney+, and it ain't half bad. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie. Oh my god, it's another iconic 90s movie that starts with the word mighty that I haven't gotten around to seeing yet. For a film primarily aimed at kids, I think this somehow managed to show even more skin than Basic Instinct. And 3 of the Power Rangers who I'm familiar with have been replaced by characters I've never seen before, so I was like, what the fuck is this shit? Also, 85% of this movie is somersaults. It helps to know that going in. The Mist. Hey kids, you ever wonder where the Duffer Brothers got the idea for Stranger Things? Look no further than The Mist. One of the darkest, scariest, most downright disturbing Stephen King stories ever told. It's no wonder so much of this movie's cast went on to star in The Walking Dead. You'd be hard-pressed to find a post-apocalyptic story more bleak. The ending of The Mist left me stunned, and I dare any movie studio today to attempt something like this. Mortal Kombat 2021. We should be kissing the ground walked on by whoever let them make this rated R. The extra blood-soaked sauciness gives Mortal Kombat a fun edge the first two films didn't have. If you can keep a straight face during a movie where one of the characters actually says, "I have risen from hell to kill you," then, my friend, this is flavor country. Next of Kin. This is an interesting one. An Australian horror film about a woman who inherits a nursing home from her estranged dead mother, except the nursing home ends up being haunted. Or does it? Next of Kin is atmospheric, slow-paced, but well-written with a lot of cool moments. I dig this. The Philadelphia Story. Here are some fun facts about the Philadelphia Story. It belongs to a now defunct genre called a comedy of remarriage. It boasts a 100% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes, if you put any stock into that sort of thing, and that same website lists it as the greatest romantic comedy of all time. I had fun with this, and I think you will too, provided you can deal with the fact that this story is very flippant about the following things: alcoholism, spousal abuse, infidelity, sexual harassment, and incestuous sexual harassment. Piranha 3D. A revival of the classic Joe Dante James Cameron franchise, Piranha 3D is a lurid but surprisingly fun B-movie with cameos aplenty and a whole lot of naked people getting various parts of their naked bodies bitten off by angry fish. The 3D is quite literally in your face, but thankfully the movie can be enjoyed without uncomfortable plastic glasses. The original Planet of the Apes movies 1 through 5. Damn. These Apes movies were an absolute treat. The first one deserves all of the hype it gets and more. It's one of the most thought-provoking and frightening science fiction stories ever told. And yeah, sure, movies 2 through 5 are a case of diminishing returns, but they were still a hell of a lot of fun to watch. In my opinion, Beneath and Escape are awesome. Conquest and Battle have great moments too, but the Andy Serkis remakes handled their plot lines much better. The 5 films really do feel like chapters in an ongoing story, which I love. I wouldn't skip any of them. Warning, if you don't like sad endings, well, maybe you better just stay away from the 1970s in general. Saturn III. There's something oddly comforting about this, dare I say, a dreamlike quality. Most of Saturn III consists of brief scenes that never last more than about a minute before fading or dissolving into another. This makes the film feel like one of those cheap public domain sci-fis that might come on at 2 a.m. back in the days when TV networks would pull all-night marathons. There's something about that I find unbelievably cozy. Otherwise, the movie is bizarre, and I have no idea what Harvey Keitel's motivation was supposed to be. Semi-Pro. A completely forgettable late 2000s Will Ferrell vehicle where I wasn't sure if I was supposed to be rooting for Ferrell or Woody Harrelson. I guess the best compliment I can give it is that the Tropics is a really cool name for a basketball team. The Stepfather. The Stepfather is a chilling, all-too-possible concept made even more chilling by the brilliant performance of Terry O'Quinn. I can't sum it up any better than that. If you think the idea of a strange man moving into your house and taking control of your life is terrifying, welcome aboard. Suspicion. Joan Fontaine and Cary Grant are married, but they literally can't go on together with suspicious minds. Mostly because Grant is a pathological liar, a con man, and a gambling addict, and his wealthy wife is one insurance policy away from being a potential murder victim. An early Hitchcock yarn with oodles of suspense, but one hell of an abrupt ending. The Transporter. Remember when I said Blue Thunder was like watching somebody else play Grand Theft Auto? I was wrong, because The Transporter is that. The Transporter is exactly that. This is one of those early 2000s action movies where every scene is based off what a 14-year-old boy thinks is cool and badass. I love all the scenes with Frank and the Inspector. Those two should have a team-up movie. Also, the musical cues in this film are baffling. We Have Always Lived in the Castle. Shirley Jackson's one of my favorite writers, and this was one of her coolest novels, so I took a peek at the movie adaptation, and holy crap, this was insanely well done. All 4 of the lead actors absolutely crush it. The score is spectacular, with an eerie playfulness that matches the sharp direction. Everything about it is great, which begs the question, what happened to the marketing for this movie? Why weren't more people talking about it? The success of Netflix's Haunting shows made Shirley Jackson a household name, and all 4 of the leads are known actors too. One of them is a marvel, for God's sake. If you like psychological horror, or you just want to see 4 great performers doing a kick-ass job, drop what you're doing and watch this. The Wild Geese. Unfortunately, not a spin-off of The Mighty Ducks. This very British war movie starts off feeling like a Bond film, complete with Maurice Binder opening credits. There's even a James Bond in it, but the comparisons stop there. What started off with the promise of fun adventure devolved into a very dry and dull shoot-'em-up that had me periodically checking my watch. And that takes us to the end of review marathon number 7, 40 movies. We did it. I've been wanting to top myself in terms of the number of things that I saw, and I finally did. 40 is a nice big one. I had to really push myself to get to 40, but I got there. Can I beat 40? I don't know. The holidays are a busy time, so I doubt that October through to December is going to see me watching more than 40 movies. But then again, the first time I did it and I hit 68, it was October through December too. So I don't know. Who knows? Anything. It's a wild card game. That's not even a phrase, but I can't even talk. That's how excited I am that I got to 40 today. And I'm so happy that all of you tuned in to review Marathon 7, which is fitting because let's be honest, probably, if any, 7 people will be all that ends up watching this damn thing because the YouTube algorithm is a fickle mistress. But anyhow, I don't care about that. I just care that you watched and you had a good time. And I hope you saw at least one thing here in this video that made you want to check it out. So until we meet again, my friends, I'm Andrew Fantasia. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, do all of that bullshit. You know how YouTube works. In the meantime, please have a wonderful day and adios.